and right now you have Ember Spirit, who is a hero that is really strong from level 7 onwards. And so DC have one of two routes. Either they can pick a carry that sort of complements that, so another carry like Clinks or Weaver that I think Mason really likes to play, or even Necrophos, which is still in the pool, to sort of help this Ember Spirit in the mid game to sort of solidify a map control advantage for Digital Chaos, or they can pick a hero like Anti-Mage or Sven that scales extremely well into the late game, and then the Ember Spirit becomes the hero that makes space for DC. But for Complexity, I think this puck could be offlane, but so either they need a mid or an offlaner, and I think that's just a preference thing for them. But definitely, they should pick a hero that helps them deal with the Ember Spirit and this potential carry pick.
So about coming into this DC last pick, they ban out the Beastmaster. See what they do with this Ember Disruptor, Night Stalker, Jakiro. Big fan of seeing Jakiro working into his way into a core role.
The thing about Jakiro to me, Jakiro seems like a hit or miss hero to me. If you don't break even in the early game at minimum, then this hero has trouble catching up because he doesn't farm quickly. He doesn't really skill, or generally he doesn't skill Ice Path until later in the game, and so he's not good at like creating pickoffs either. He's sort of just this hero that moves around with your team, helps take towers, and helps push out lanes. I mean, he does that extremely well though.
Bristleback comes out for the side of Digital Chaos as something we haven't seen at all today, something I haven't seen in quite some time, and now with this Bristleback, they've got this tanky Bristleback that can really spray down some of these heroes on Complexity and make it a little bit easier for the rest of his team to want to go in.
Yeah, it gives DC a frontliner, but also I think maybe DC sensed an opening in Complexity's lineup for a good Bristleback game, since Complexity don't exactly have any heroes that can take down this Bristle. You can rupture the Bristle, but Bristle's not really obligated to move around during the rupture, and so it sort of gives DC this timing again from like level 7 onwards where they're super strong. Complexity's lineup can't really deal with DC's cores very well, and so if DC get off to a good start, I see a scenario where Complexity are stuck split pushing and waiting for a stage in the game where they can fight into DC. But if Complexity come out on top of the early game, they can use that Chen to sort of push down a lot of towers, so it kind of goes both ways.
Last pick coming in here from Complexity is going to be Viper. So, Viper, a hero I've seen banned out a couple of times, finally makes it through for Complexity. How do you like this last pick of Viper to round out this Complexity draft?
It gives them a really strong lane matchup against the Ember Spirit. It also gives them a hero that can help them push, right? Because Viper plus Chen, a pretty potent combo for hitting towers safely. And so the only problem I have for Complexity's lineup is it feels like they lack the mobility to sort of deal with Bristleback and Ember Spirit. Again, I think the only two lockdown spells they have is Rubik and Puck, unless you count Chen spells. So it should be a pretty good game for Abid and Mason. However, if Complexity managed to get ahead in the early game, I think that they will have a much easier time pushing than the DC lineup.
So you've got Mason on this Bristleback, Abed on the Ember Spirit Moomiander playing the Disruptor, Bulba on that Roaming Night Stalker, and MSS on the Jakiro. Limp playing the Viper for the side of Complexity with Z-Freak on that Chen, Moo in the offlane, Puck, Chessie playing the Bloodseeker, and finally we're going to have Kyle on the Rubik. So game one here between DC and Complexity in this grand final for the NA qualifier. We'll have to see how it goes for both sides, and let's see if DC can really keep it up here. They've been looking pretty clean throughout this qualifier.
Yeah, they have, and both of these teams, arguably some of the best teams or I guess they are the best teams in North America, two of the best teams, and so I'm sure this series will go either way. I don't see a particular team that has a draft advantage at the moment. The only problem is, I think I've already gone over this. Chen's not a hero that exactly scales well if he's behind. So if DC managed to sort of trip Complexity up early, I can definitely see this game being a lot easier for DC.
You know, we'll definitely have to keep an eye on Z-Freak and how he does with this Chen. What really is the most susceptible lane that he's going to be going towards or trying to really get a couple pickoffs on?
Well, it seems like they're actually parking Mason in the mid lane. Ember Spirit seems to be positioned in the bottom lane as a safe laner with safe lane items, and so I still think the easiest kill for Chen this game is going to be somewhere between Jakiro and the Ember Spirit. Bristleback's sort of a tough hero to kill. I mean, if Viper manages to get him low, then the Bristleback's an easy kill, but I don't think Mason's gonna let that happen, especially with a spell like Nether Toxin coming out from Viper. And there's actually a bit of a lane swap going on again. Ember Spirit's gonna be in the top lane now. Z-Freak has placed himself on the right side of the map. I wonder if he knows about this lane swap, because almost certainly I feel like Complexity's priority this game is to shut down both the Bristleback and the Ember Spirit.
You think they have that opportunity with just the puck in the safe lane?
I mean, the puck has to do a lot of damage to this Ember Spirit. Perhaps the easiest kill on the map is going to be this Bristleback, now that the Ember Spirit's on the top half of the map and Z-Freak starting on the right side.
You take a look at... Go for it.
Chens generally don't like crossing the entire map for a gank, so most of the work that Z-Freak's going to be doing is going to be in the mid and the bottom lane.
You take a look as the dual breath as well as the void comes out on Kyle. He does get a nice telekinesis to stun up two of these heroes. Not going to be able to get the kill, but the harassment sure is there onto the Rubik, and they're going to be able to push him back. You see Z-Freak coming down towards bottom, and as he just has that Hellbear for now. But is that going to be enough with Chessie, Kyle, as well as this Z-Freak and Hellbear combination? I'm not too sure I can see them getting a kill with just that.
Yeah, DC sort of have to misposition themselves to get caught out here, but this is a lot of pressure going on to the bottom lane for DC. The only problem is you're sort of just pressuring this Jakiro and the Night Stalker, and they don't really care about that. Like Jakiro, both of these heroes scale extremely well with levels, so even if they're not getting last hits, I think DC are comfortable with this just because their mid and top lane are going to have an easier time with Rubik and Chen sort of roaming in the bottom half of the map. So Bulba's making sort of a rotation to grab the bounty rune because there's really not much he can do at this point.
Now, if he doesn't have that level 2, is first night going to be easy for him, or is he really going to struggle coming into this first night just level 1?
It's definitely not an ideal game for Night Stalker, but we'll see if he actually gets anything done, and there might be a kill in the bottom lane.
Yeah, you take a look as Jakiro just getting chased down by 3 of these heroes on the side of Complexity. They combine all 3, they get Kyle with the telekinesis, the Hellbear there with the Thunderclap, and they'll get the kill. First blood goes the way of Complexity, taking out Jakiro.
We'll have to see if Bulba gets anything done on the first night. It's obviously not an ideal Night Stalker game. He's stuck at level 1, and he's also up against a Chen, who's arguably one of the better early game heroes, so... Actually, a lot of heroes taking damage here, but looks like Complexity won't lose anyone here. Moon Meander rotates to the bottom lane, which means that they could have kill potential on one of these heroes on Complexity. The only problem is I don't think DC really have enough damage to net any easy kills at the moment. At least not until they start getting levels.
Yeah, so already we see a 1,000 net worth lead here for the side of Complexity, and they did spot out that rotation of Moomiander with the Hellbear coming through from Z-Freak. So not too aggressive is going to be the side of Complexity. But we do take a look over towards this Chen as he's making his way towards the top of this jungle. Maybe looking to grab something good and move over towards taking out this Ember Spirit top. Meanwhile, over bottom, Chessie getting pretty low with that Thunderstrike coming through from the Disruptor, but he should be alright, sitting at about 250 health.
And so Complexity have sort of a steady lead right now, almost 1.5k net worth lead, so the ball's definitely in their court to make the first move, especially with a pushing, or sort of like a push-oriented lineup with the Chen. So DC, they sort of have to make a move in the next couple of minutes to maybe get a pick off, maybe help one of their lanes get ahead, maybe set up this Ember Spirit to be in a position to actually fight into the Chen, because I think in the next couple of minutes, maybe even with the siege creep wave coming at 5 minutes, Complexity might look to put some pressure on perhaps the bottom lane.
Took a look over mid for a second. It looked as though that Viper might get a kill on Mason. He's not too careful. Limp does hit pretty hard early, and you see it right there as Mason sent all the way back to the base, and now missing out on a couple of creep waves as Limp is going to take full advantage, now level 6.
Yeah, Limp's going to have a full level advantage on Mason, and I don't think this result is surprising. I'm sure Viper... Well, in the bottom lane.
Meanwhile, bottom telekinesis comes out on Moomy, and they're just trying to make some space with that kinetic field, but not going to come up nearly in time. Chessie will grab at least one. They look towards getting this Jakiro. The dual breath comes out on Chessie, and maybe he thinks better of it as he starts to make his way back towards his tower, but he's got to come over towards Zfreak, who's come through with the Centaur Conqueror. See if maybe they can find something with another telekinesis ready to go on this Rubik. And that's exactly what they're trying to set up, throw him back into the stomp of the Centaur Conqueror, but it's not going to be there in time, and they're also not going to be able to line it up with the Blood Right. Finally, the stomp comes in. You've got Zfreak, Chessie, and Kyle hitting away, and it will be another kill for Complexity.
And, DC, they're really not in a position to respond to this. Their Disruptor's still only level 3, their Night Stalker's level 2, and arguably, like, 2 of Complexity's lanes are unkillable. This Puck's a really hard kill, so is the Viper, and so it's a lot easier for Complexity to make moves right now. The only thing that DC should perhaps focus on is making sure that at some point in the next 5 minutes they're actually able to fight, and I think the number one concern for them is just getting levels on this Ember Spirit and getting levels on their supports.
So Moo's actually up here by himself, level 6 now with that Dream Coil. They've shifted 2 heroes here in both Bulba and Moon Meander. They've got the level 2 in Thunderstrike, but no glimpse for this Puck.
No glimpse and no silence from the Night Stalker, so sort of a tough kill. I think the only way they make it happen is if they make Moo expend the orb, and then they somehow sort of catch him in a weird position where all 3 heroes can deal damage to him. And actually, that's the orb, so...
Yeah, so he's going to be in a lot of trouble. They send the Remnants in, but a nicely placed Dream Coil keeps Moo alive for now. The Kinetic Field's not going to lock him in, but Searing Chains will, and Bulba, Abed, and Moomiander combine for the kill onto Moo up top.
Yep, and that's a really important kill for DC, right? They kill a level 6 hero, they get EXP on their 2 supports. I mean, there's 1 minute until daytime, but as I say, that Complexity, they're making a move on Mojo down bottom.
You take a look at this Jakiro, he'll just TP out, and now the push is on for Complexity.
Not quite the siege creep timing, but still a pretty good timing on this tier 1. It will almost certainly go down since DC is not in a position to defend that. But at the same time, DC, they're positioning up top again for this Puck. Moo's got to be a little bit careful here.
And he's still got that illusory orb available, but still no glimpse from Moomiander. He shows himself by the top tower. There's a Sleight of Fist, Searing Chains. They're going to send Limp up there to try and help out Moo. Doesn't have that Dream Coil for another 11 seconds. Sends himself over top with the illusory orb. Going to avoid Op-Ed for now, but looks like he might finally be cleaned up. And as I'm looking over at seeing if this Puck is going to go down by Op-Ed, it's a double kill for Limp off camera a little bit. Just
quite a okay exchange for Complexity. I mean, it's their core for two support, so pretty even trade there. That being said, MSS is getting a little bit of tower damage bottom. That tower, the tier 1 tower for bottom fell on the side of DC, so Mason's sort of just been stuck jungling for the last little while, and you see everyone's sort of way behind this Viper at the moment. Limp having an incredible laning phase, and sort of you don't usually see Vipers this far ahead in the game at this stage.
Yeah, over 1,000 net worth advantage over this Ember Spirit, and you take a look at what he's got. He's got Helm of the Dominator already with the Aquila. Mason working on this stack to boost up his farm, as he's sitting 4th on the net worth behind the Bloodseeker, Ember, and Viper.
And I think the next... Actually, Complexity is doing a smoke top, but I think the next timing for DC is really the level 6 on Disruptor. We'll see if they're actually able to catch Ember Spirit here.
He's rooted up as well as Limp getting that first hit in. They've brought him pretty close to Z-Freak, in fact, and it's right on the Conqueror. He gets himself out with the Remnant. Now a Dual Breath thrown on to Z-Freak as well as the Liquid Fire. They might send a couple of TPs into the Shrine, and that's exactly what they're going to do with Bulba and the rest of the gang. You take a look, you've got the Bristleback here with Moomiander. Dual Breath again on Z-Freak. That'll drop him. Kyle just trying to run himself out as they've only lost one, but Moomiander can't find the range for that glimpse.
That's a level 1 glimpse, so only 600 range. Perhaps if it was level 2, it might have clipped Kyle, but Swindle Mountains, he gets away. Chessie's just been free farming the bottom lane. The only problem I see for Chessie right now is he seems a little bit under-leveled at level 7. The other cores, or the other core on his team, Viper's level 10, but I guess that's a bit of a anomaly. And so Complexity's still with a commanding lead, 3k net worth ahead. 2k net worth or 2k exp ahead. DC are sort of pressured to make the move right now, since I think Bristle and Ember Spirit aren't heroes that like to be playing from behind.
And you see Mason still struggling to find that farm in the jungle. The kill definitely helps him out. And he is looking for that Vanguard. Is Vanguard going to be enough for him to be aggressive, or is he looking to sit back and farm as much as he can for the next 5 minutes or so?
I think the Vanguard will help. It's one of the most cost-effective HP items in the early game, and I think DC, they don't want to continue the game at its current pace because Complexity is just going to slowly outfarm them.
Chessie is going to spot Op-Ed. The Blood Right not going to hit as ruptured up his Op-Ed. You've got Rubik coming over with a couple of Z-free creeps, and there's the Fade Bolt. They're looking for more. They're going to start to push Op-Ed back. They'll open up the Flame Guard from Kyle, and now Sleight of Fist with the Remnant out to safety.
Yeah. I think DC is one of the best teams at recognizing where and when their openings are. You'll notice that DC is sort of playing passively right now, but that's just the nature of how their lineup plays against the Complexity lineup. And
oh boy, Kyle might be spotted out here and dead for sure, it seems. Moomiander here with MSS. It should be easy for them to clean him up, and it will be. Dual Breath with the Thunder Strike. I'll get the kill on this Rubik.
So you see Moonmeander, he consumed the Tome of Knowledge, so he's level 6 now, and I think this is the spell they needed to start going for bigger moves, and I think we'll start seeing DC actively looking for kills with this Disruptor ulti, especially on heroes like the Puck and Bloodseeker. At the moment, I think the Viper is just way too difficult to kill, sitting with Power Treads and Helm of the Dominator. So
We'll have to see how DC start to react to this Complexity push, even if they do it all. And we'll just be the Macro Pyre laid on top of this creep wave, but does that really do enough to deter them?
I mean, it really doesn't, especially with Helm of Dominator creep available to tank the tower. This tier 1 will surely fall, but DC, they're just trying to get as much out of the map as possible. They're farming up top and bottom with their heroes. I don't believe DC will want to go for a fight when Complexity are grouped up, just because they're so far behind on net worth and because that Viper is so far ahead. So I think DC will continue with sort of a split the map, get as much farm as possible, and then constantly look for openings, because the only way they get themselves back into this game, or rather the only way they get their cores in a position to win this game, is if they go for kills at some point. They're not going to be able to win this game by just farming, and I think they know that, so they're smoking 2 of their heroes up top, with Bulba sort of being the bait.
And you see Moo looking to go in, and there's the Dream Coil with those Mud Golems. It's a quick kill on Bulba, and this smoke a little bit too slow. Meanwhile, Z-Freak is nearby. They might get the glimpse into a nice ice path, but with 3 heroes committed, and now actually 4, for just the kill on this Chen, is it even worth it with a huge rotation like that?
It's not quite worth it with the rotation, but if you consider just the 1-for-1 kill, it's probably fine for them since they're quite behind and the Chen's slightly ahead of the Night Stalker. They will also be able to put some damage on this tower.
And so they start to push this tower out with Mason, MSS, and Moomiander. One Golem's just sticking around, maybe to look for that initiation stun onto these DC heroes when they go for the chase, and that looks to be exactly what they're lining up as they get the lift onto the Bristleback, but it's Mason and Abed here. Kyle in a lot of trouble with the Static Storm, dropped on top of a couple of these heroes. He's going to go down with the pullback of Moo. He's going to be in a little bit of trouble as well. Mason just sitting, ruptured in the trees. They're going to drop Abed, and now they look for more. The Shockwave hits. The rest of these heroes start to hit away, but the Bristles do all the work, and Mason's got a double kill. He's looking for more in Limp. Bulba continuing to chase with that silence. Now the Void. Limp push back. He's getting quite low, and he's in a pretty bad spot going up against Mason and Bulba. Mason's still trying to get out of here, maybe trying to deny himself to neutral creeps, but Z-Freak takes care of him, and now they might get more in MSS. Got 3 heroes here, and Chessie on a killing spree will clean up Jakiro, and 3 fall on the side of DC.
Yeah, it was quite a good exchange for Complexity there. It looked like it was going good for DC. They caught out the Rubik and then the puck on Moo on the puck, but Moo was just way too tanky. 2 Null Talismans, had 17 wand charges and a range drop, was able to survive, and as a result, sort of just stretched DC's resources that fight a little bit too thin. You know, they expended their ultimates, didn't really get much, and so the Viper and the Bloodseeker really weren't really threatened that fight, and so Complexity, they come out on top. DC, they're sort of back in the same position they were. I guess their situation hasn't really changed.
So, down about 5,000 net worth. DC, it looked as though they might do well in that little exchange that happened over top, but what do they do here? The net worth is starting to really extend in Complexity's favor.
Yeah, I think DC are just hoping that Complexity are never in a position to just high ground, and obviously DC are gonna sort of play around that and make sure that Complexity can't group up, that Complexity never really get enough pickoffs to make Complexity feel comfortable enough to go for Roshan or go for a tier 3. So, you know, Abed on Ember Spirit, he's starting to pick up travels to sort of help with the split pushing effort, sort of help him scale into the late game, especially when he's the only hero on his team that can help. He's the only hero on his team that can safely push out waves in the mid to late game.
So Chessie just continuing to farm away. He's got that Sacred Relic, working on that Radiance next. Limp. He's working towards that Manta style, a bit of ways away from that. But then you take a look at Moo, who's got Veil looking for the Blink next. Those next couple of items for Complexity seem that
Bottom lane.
Like they could be quite a bit as you take a look over bottom. As they're going to start chasing into this Bloodseeker. The Void comes out. It's just a Jakiro, just a Night Stalker, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. Now with the Disruptor here, the Dual Breath hitting again. It's another kill for the side of DC as they clean up Chessie.
It's a huge kill that MSS really needed on Jakiro since he was behind, but Complexity, they were smoked up. They might catch some heroes here.
Yeah, they've got a Dream Coil coming out on 2 as well as the Waning Rift. Moon Meander looking like he's going to be the one who drops, and that'll be it. And it will be that kill for Moo, so he gets one in return. Now 10-8 in favor of Complexity.
Overall, a good exchange for DC, however, and Mason's got enough gold for a Solar Crest if he chooses to buy that, and that should help him a lot against the Viper, since Viper's not going to have an MKB for a really long time, nor is the Bloodseeker ever really going to want to buy an MKB, so that should make Mason a lot tankier in these fights, which might give DC the edge coming into the next team fight when DC chooses to take it.
So DC grab that tier 1 top, Searing Chains, and there's the Remnant away from Abed, not even going to think about fighting Limp 1v1.
And Z-Freak has a Midas, is about 1.3k gold away from an Aghanim Scepter, and that might be the timing that Complexity are going to look for when it comes to sort of pushing into this DC lineup. You'll see Limp doesn't even have a Maelstrom queued up, which is usually an item that Vipers go for when they plan on taking it to the late game, or just plan on having a game where the Viper farms a lot, because that Maelstrom really changes the way Viper operates as a hero, because instead of sitting in lane all the time, you actually have the option of clearing the lanes out quickly and going to the jungle. Instead, Limp opts for a Manta, more of a teamfight-oriented item.
Yeah, these item timings, like I said, from Complexity, just seem like they're going to line up at the right times. Blink Dagger on the Puck. Ag's going to come out soon for this Chen. Radiance on the Bloodseeker. And Manta on the Viper. It seems like a huge boost in power for the side of Complexity that I'm not too sure DC are going to be able to handle. They're looking for the Radiance in return on Oped, but I don't know if he's going to be able to get it. Meanwhile, Kyle goes in as well as Moo, and Oped's going to be okay. No worse for the wear.
I think Abbott's plan right now is just to continue to split push, keep the lanes up, make sure Complexity feel like they're never in a safe position to go for ganks or go for objectives. But you know, this won't last for too long. I feel like if DC don't make a move in the next 2 minutes, then Complexity are going to hit their item timings, and DC might be in a lot of trouble. So I'll have to see if they do anything with this nighttime, especially now that Darkness is activated on Night Stalker.
So Mason continuing to push up top, has himself that Medallion and the Vanguard with quite a bit of cash saved up for him now with that Boots of Travel. But Chessie, he's picked up this Radiance, and he'll be able to start to clean up these creep waves pretty quickly. So the push that DC's hoping for might not still be there, and the Veil going to be thrown on the Oped. You've got Limp nearby. There's the Waning Rift. Maybe look for that Dream Coil to come out, but the Sleight of Fist Searing Chains Remnant away is enough to get him to his escape.
You can sort of see the lack of lockdown on Complexity kicking in there. I mean, that it was sort of a hard gank just because it was 2 heroes, but you know, if they had another hero like a Spirit Breaker, Earth Spirit, or Earth Shaker, then that certainly would have been an easy kill with an additional stun. But unfortunately for Complexity, Abed gets away, and he actually might just break their smoke here.
Take a look as the smoke is broken. They get the Dream Coil to fly on to Oped to kill him off. Actually looked up top for a split second and missed that. He gets dropped by 4 heroes on Complexity, and with no Ember Spirit on the board, they're going to look towards taking the first Roche of the game.
Yeah, and with this Roche, you know, the game is certainly in Complexity's hands. They'll be able to either get a tier 3 or at least eliminate all of DC's tier 2s from the map. So should put Complexity in a winning position. Mason opted for Boots of Travels, which is not exactly a teamfight item, so you know, you can consider that Bristleback sort of 2k net worth behind for the next couple of fights with an item that doesn't exactly help him repel the push coming from Complexity. So I think, if anything, the Travels is going to help his team split push, but you know, it's hard to say how much split pushing will do, since Complexity will probably look to reset and start grouping up soon.
So Oped nearby with this Invis rune. You gotta think that you see yourself burning down with this little bit of damage, but now he comes out Searing Chains and he'll go all the way out.
Yeah. You can see DC's not even bothering to group up right now. They're just trying to get as much out of the map as possible before this Complexity lineup decides to group up. Instead of going in Radiance, Abed seems to have switched his quick buy to a Maelstrom, which should help him a little bit more in the next few engagements. Help him earlier, rather.
Take a look over mid as the Searing Chains come out on Limp. Walking away is Oped. He's actually just going to TP out.
Top lane.
Luckily enough for him, there was nobody else there. You take a look up top. Moo's going to have himself a 3-man Dream Coil. Let's see if he can get himself out of this one. There's the phase shift, and Mason, MSS, and Bulba just slap him down and get themselves an easy kill.
Certainly a really good kill from DC, and again, the timing coming out, you know, they wait for Moo to expend his orb, and then they go right in while that spell's on cooldown, and they manage to net themselves a pretty important kill. But, you know, Complexity still almost 7k net worth ahead, almost 6k net worth, or almost 6k EXP ahead, so definitely.
Take a look over top. They're trying to go in on a couple of these heroes. They've seemed to have spotted Moomiander. He's already taken out of this game. They look towards maybe getting Mason, but This is remnants from Kyle being used, and Mason will be able to TP out. Quick kill there onto the Disruptor.
Yeah. And so far, DC's been doing a really good job of pulling complexity all over the map. I mean, they do get a Disruptor kill, but you know, the Disruptor's almost back up, and that was like 2 or 3 heroes rotating top. And actually, Swollen Melons might go down up here.
Take a look. Kyle getting into a little bit of trouble. Uses the telekinesis to try and get away from Abed, but the burn here from the Flame Guard as well as the Searing Chains. He's not going to be able to handle all that burn damage coming out here from Abed, and this Ember Spirit will end up getting the kill, but that comes at the cost of losing your tier 2 over mid.
And so there's two... Before this push, there's 2 big item timings coming out from DC right now. They almost have a VKB on Mason.
Thrown onto Chessie as well as the Ice Path. But it doesn't seem like they have anything to really follow it up. Complexity just looking to slow siege this. They have the Ags out on the Chen. And in fact, they actually decide to just retreat off that mid lane push.
And DC doing a really good job of counter pushing, and you know, this Aegis might actually run out before they're able to do anything with it. They do get 2 tier 2s, however, so not the worst usage of Aegis. DC are just doing a really good job of preventing complexity from being in a position to push, and you know, this Bristleback's starting to work on a BKB, which should help him immensely in these fights, especially since a lot of complexity's damage comes from magic, and Abed's also got a Radiance back in the queue. He should have that before the next fight, seeing as how DC have been on this trend of avoiding fights in the last 10 minutes.
So right now, top of the net worth is the Viper of Limp, and then followed up by Chessie on this Bloodseeker. He just bought out and got himself that full BKB, so now here with the Radiance and BKB, doesn't look like they're going to use this Aegis to really look for a high ground push, but like you said, they took out 2 towers. Is that enough of a push to really think that you're going to maintain this lead over DC, or is this an opening now?
Well, I think Complexity, realistically, it's difficult for them to push without the Aegis, and I think the Aegis is gonna run out soon, so if Complexity don't do anything with this first Aegis, then they'll have to wait for the second Aegis before being able to actually high ground safely, assuming that all of the heroes on DC are alive.
So, Mason actually TP's very close to this Complexity side. I was actually thinking that was not the right move, but the Static Storm is laid on top of 2 of these heroes. They've got Moo going in deep with a nice Dream Coil placed onto 2 of these heroes. They've taken out Mason, and there's the Aegis gone, but let's see if that deters them from continuing to go in. Moo getting quite low with the Ice Path and the Macro Pyro laid on top of him. They're going to take him out. The buyback is there from Mason, and now they've lost Bulba. You've got the glimpse back of Chessie getting quite low with the Ice Path and the Dual Breath just burning him away. And he might be in a little bit of trouble and will end up dropping a Moomiander. So they've taken out 2. They force the buyback of Mason. Limp hits away at Moomiander, who's in a lot of trouble. But overall, they do hold this tier 3 for now. And the engagement isn't really over. Kyle's going to get hit by that Rod of Atos. Ice Path not going to hit. And now the Ice Path stolen and thrown right back at him.
Overall, you know, DC, they get to defend their racks, but it does cost them a buyback on Mason, and definitely seems like an over-aggressive TP from Mason, but they do survive, they keep their racks. Sort of enter the late game now, especially with that Radiance getting quite close for the Ember Spirit, and this should buy enough time for Mason to finish his BKB before the next fight.
But now Mason, he's got no buyback for quite some time. If they were to force a push on Complexity, that could spell a lot of trouble for DC.
It could, but you know, I think the DC lineup are going to continue to split push and get these lanes out. And Complexity Complexity only have 1 hero that can sort of, or I guess 2 heroes that can sort of respond to the split push safely, the Viper and the Puck. You know, the Puck just blasts waves safely, has a blink, has phase shift, and the Viper just is able to push lanes because he's so far ahead of the enemy team. But you know, I suppose that DC can't exactly pressure Complexity to push back or to TP back, especially since the only hero that's missing off of the map is the Ember Spirit right now.
He's pulled himself all the way back to base. Oped now with this Radiance. And Blink picked up here for Kyle. So we'll have to see how he does with that Rubik now having the Blink Dagger. He's stolen a couple of pretty important spells so far. The Ice Path didn't hit over bottom, but I'm pretty sure he had landed a couple earlier in that fight, which really extended the fight between these two teams. Ice Path comes through onto Limp. He might be in a little bit of trouble, forced to use that Manta style. And now they're looking to re-engage slowly but surely on the side of Complexity. Again, you see that Ice Path get thrown forward by Kyle, and if it locks somebody up on DC, we could see Complexity really look to jump in.
And I think this time DC are going to position themselves a lot better. I mean, I suppose Mason probably knows that he shouldn't be in the middle of 5 heroes this time. And DC are just going to slowly try to defend their tower one wave at a time.
We're finally going to spot...
Definitely feels like... It feels like Complexity are wasting a lot more time being here unless they get this tier 3, so I think they'll keep trying.
Ice Path as well as the Searing Chains are going to hit on Chessie. Ice Path thrown right back. There it is. Finally the tier 3 taken by Limp. And DC, they might in fact look to chase. It looked as though they were going to give it a first thought, and the second thought there was to not go in. But as I say that, they pull back Limp. They get the glimpse into the kinetic field. Coming through is going to be Moo. He's got the Dream Coil coming through onto Disruptor. And that seemingly is it. Both these teams not fully committing to the fight.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention that Bulba, or Abed did pick up a Zefrix gem, so there's a gem and an Aghanim Scepter and a Night Stalker, which should give some vision advantage to DC. The only thing is, DC have to be in a position to deward, and now that they've sort of pushed Complexity off of their tier 3, or I guess the tier 3 fell, it should give some time for Bulba to do some dewarding. Whether or not it'll be enough is a different question, but definitely, I think in order for DC, what DC are probably thinking right now is we need to win that next team fight, right? Because if we lose one more team fight, we're pretty much gonna get raxed, maybe even 2 raxes.
It seems like this 12,000 net worth deficit is hard to overcome for the side of DC. They are holding pretty well, but of course they lost that tier 3 tower, but it did take Complexity 2 attempts to go in and get that.
Yeah, DC's anti-push isn't quite strong enough to deter this Bloodseeker and Viper from hitting the tower, and so if Complexity get this next Roche, that'll put them in a really good position, and if DC don't realize it's happening, then, you know, DC will never be able to set up, especially now that Complexity has placed some pretty good wards around the Roche pit.
So they will work on this Roche, take it out very quickly. Aegis back on Chessie, this time Cheese onto Limp. Meanwhile, they'll get the kill on the Disruptor. Moomiander just found completely out of place.
Abbott's continuing to split push top, but I don't think it'll be enough. You know, Ember Spirit as a hero, he can kill the waves quite easily, but he can't exactly threaten these buildings the same way that, say, an Anti-Mage or a Lone Druid can, so Complexity feel no obligation to go back, they're gonna push.
Yeah, they're going to come in over bottom. You see the Macro Pyre laid down. Kyle will be the first one to drop. Then they're going to take out MSS. He'll immediately buy back into this game. It's Limp who's now dominating. Sleight of Fist, Searing Chains, and there's the man to purge it off. You take a look as Chessie just trying to find an opening with this Aegis. They've used the BKB on Mason. Now turning around is going to be Chessie. You've got Moo on the back line, silencing up this Jakiro, and there's the Aegis popped. You've got 5 alive for DC. And 4 alive for Complexity as Chessie now pops his BKB and the Blade Mail attacking out Bulba. He's going to drop that gem. Now Moomiander, who's already bought back, is dead. Oped, the next one to drop, and Complexity take out 3. They'll look towards Jakiro, get another one, and he had just bought back as well, so he's dead for over a minute, no buyback. Oped and Mason, the only 2 heroes alive here for the side of DC to really defend this bottom set of racks, and Mason getting hit up quite hard by the side of Complexity and will drop. Oped, he's in the eyes of Complexity next, and with that, it's a full team wipe for Complexity as well as game 1.
Perhaps the biggest thing going for Complexity was just that last pick Viper. It forced DC into like a weird laning scenario where it was off lane, and Mason on Bristleback was in the middle end, so really the Ember Spirit and the Bristleback were never in the positions they wanted to be in to fight, because ideally in a Bristleback and Ember Spirit lineup at level 7 and beyond, you know, you're constantly taking fights, you're actually able to take them. But instead, Complexity, it feels like they had a little bit of an outdraft against DC, and also, you know, they just played the early game a lot better and just rode that lead all the way until the end.
Yeah, ride that lead they did with 6-0 on Limp. Chessie 5-2. Everybody having double-digit assists, so always involved was this side of Complexity. Meanwhile, DC falling behind early was the death of them as Complexity continued to push and use that